Morning, Bob.
Good morning.
How you doing?
Good. How about yourself?
Pretty good.
Is it my eyes or is your camera out of focus?
Yeah, for some reason, yeah, it seems to be kind of blurry.
Yes.
Do me a favor. I'm going to do a test here real quick. I'm just
Sure.
going to do a screen share. Tell me whether this looks blurry to you or not. I mean, I can be blurry, as long as everything that I'm presenting looks pretty clear. Do you see that pretty clearly?
Yes. Yeah, that's clear. That's got a lot of nice edges on that.
Okay. All right. So it's just for whatever
It's
reason.
your local. Yeah.
I don't know what that's kind of about.
Oh, that got better. Very good. You must have had some smudge on it.
Yeah, must have. Okay. Yeah, I guess. Yeah. How was your weekend?
Well, I've been finishing up my Christmas cards.
Okay.
So what I've been doing all weekend. And I've done a dozen, which is pretty good for me.
Yeah. Well, you're cutting it kind of close, I mean, it's
Well, there's just two that had to be mailed, and they're mailed already. So the rest of them are going to be handed out at Christmas. So I'm cool on that one.
oh, okay. Yeah, I was about to say, if you're going to count on the post office this year, they're saying.
Yeah. No, these are all just, this is going to be family Christmas cards.
Okay. Let's see. Yeah, just you and me so far. Wow. Yeah, we got two whole minutes. So, anyway.
I've got a vacuum cleaner in the background. I'm going to put you on mute.
Okay. I'm assuming Tiffany is over cleaning your house, maybe?
I'm not cleaning the house.
You're not cleaning house? No, Bob.
No, till New Year. It's gonna stay dirty and dusty.
Oh, okay.
Only the bathroom and the kitchen will be clean.
I see. Well, as long as you're happy with that, that's all that really counts. How you doing this morning, Armando?
Oh, I'm doing wonderful. I'm all right.
Okay. What's the date today?
Wait for all of this holiday thing be over so I can concentrate in doing something on art. I've been too busy many things at the same time, including church. So.
Okay. Today's the 13th. Yeah, I was just reading an email. They said that they wanted everybody available on the 12th. That would have been yesterday.
We only are 4 today. Oh, Miss Bernice is here. Good morning, Miss Bernice.
Yes, Bernice is here. John's here.
Hey, Robert.
Slowly but surely.
Mm-hmm.
We're kind of getting there. So did everybody have an okay weekend?
Yes.
It was a disturbing weekend because every person I saw, I looked at their ears and noses.
Hey, John.
And you were disturbed by that, or they were disturbed by you looking?
Well, I don't know if disturbed is the right word, but it was funny because, and even not watching TV, I looked at ears and noses.
Okay. Well, after drawing and getting to kind of.
It is a sad thing what happened in Kentucky with those people now in Christmas.
That's horrible.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, what happened in Kentucky? I didn't hear about
It's a bad tornado and cleaned up a bunch of towns.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I got something kind of on one of the news feeds about a tornado. I wasn't sure where it was. But, okay, so Kentucky, huh?
Mhm.
Yeah.
And they were surprised, but they said that never happened in the winter.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So when they
Totally,
hear,
totally devastating, yeah. That was
yeah.
good.
when they hear the siren, they didn't pay attention because that never happened in winter. So
Uh-huh. Yeah. Well, and you know, that's unfortunately that's happening way too often. You know, weather patterns are not what they normally are. And so
No.
we're getting a lot of,
everything changed.
yeah, kind of a lot of freaky storms. And well, you know, look at the fire season in California and stuff like that. You know, it had never ever been that extreme. You know, and it's just gotten to the point where it's ridiculous now, all over the West. Plus, I think they've been in a drought for, I think they said the last 15 years. You know, basically,
Right.
yeah. So it's like a really long-term drought. And they, you know, they go through that periodically, but you know, it just seems like this one's on a magnitude.
You know, that's bad, real bad. You lose everything,
Mhm.
including the
But
memory.
I think the Earth goes through its cycles, but man has intensified some of those cycles.
Well, yeah, possibly. You know, you're talking about earthquakes. You know, and it's not that, you know, like Oklahoma and places like that, Texas never had earthquakes. They do, but they have them very rarely. And a lot of earthquakes have been happening recently, within the last like 5 years, and they're attributing a lot of that to the fracking. You know, trying to get oil out of the ground.
Yeah, oil and natural gas, yes.
Right. And pumping water into that, you know, strata. And it's having an effect, and it's setting off earthquakes. You know, if it does stuff like that, it kind of makes you kind of think, is that really a good idea to do that? At least it would make me kind of think that. I don't know. Anyway, today, guess what we're going to do?
Nothing.
Oh, we're going to do something. We always do. Have we ever done nothing?
We're gonna chatty. It's Christmas time.
Well, yeah. Well, and okay, good. Thanks for reminding me. Yes, this is the last week of classes. Friday will be the 17th, and that will be the last class for the year. So,
Okay. Question.
uh-huh.
Can we have our Zoom Christmas party on the 17th?
No,
What Christmas party?
Oh, hi, Miss Bernice.
it's something that Armando is trying to push through on his own. You know, he's mandating a Christmas party, and the simple answer to that is no. Okay, we can't have it on the 17th. But I'll tell you what, if you do want to set up a Christmas Zoom Christmas party, I'll be happy to do that. You know, and we can do it any day, say like from the 20th, you know, up to the 23rd. Okay. Is that you, Armando? We can get together for a half hour and do a Zoom Christmas party.
Yeah, pick the day. I'll be there.
Okay. All right.
I take my computer to the living room and I show you my Christmas decorations. So.
Okay. Well, now this will be a totally, you know, off the Fulton County, you know, channel type thing.
Oh, I see.
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll just do it for, you know.
I don't have account with Zoom.
I
Huh?
tell you.
I don't have account with Zoom.
Well, you won't need one. I'm going to send you a link. I'm going to set it up just like classes, and I'll send you a link, and we can all do it. Is the 20th a good day for everybody? That's a Monday, I believe.
The 20th, we're not going to be here, remember?
Well,
Our last day is 17th, I think. 18th.
Right. That's the last class. Okay. What we're talking about is going outside of the classes and trying just to set up a get together for kind of like a Zoom Christmas party online. on the
Oh, okay.
Okay. I mean, does that work for everybody?
Hello.
Oh, I
That sounds okay.
yeah.
Okay.
That's Christmas week, you know, lot of stuff to do.
Right. Yeah.
Are
Well,
you okay, John?
yeah. It's
Yeah.
a couple of days before, you know. So, and you know, we'll just schedule it for like a half hour, 45 minutes, check in with everybody.
Yeah.
Wish everybody a Merry Christmas, and then you know we'll kind of get on to doing whatever else we're going to do. Okay. Unless you guys have a different plan, and you know, obviously, you know, I'll do whatever you want me to do. Okay.
Really?
Okay, Bernice, calm down, Bernice.
Within the realms of setting up a Zoom meeting for you guys.
So is Robert agree? Because he's quiet.
Bob,
He's
Bob,
muted.
Bob is muted because I think he's got a vacuum going on in the background. He's getting a little house
Oh.
or something. Veronica's muted. Veronica, you got any thoughts about this?
The Christmas party on the 20th.
Right.
I think I can make that.
Okay. All right.
You don't have to cook anything, Veronica.
Thank goodness.
Well,
No, Armando's doing all the cooking.
Say what?
I don't know how that will work on Zoom. I was going to say
Right.
everybody's going to have to do their own eggnog. Okay.
Yes.
So, you know, and obviously you strike it the way you want. You know, that's totally up to you. Okay. Anyway, let's get on to class. We got a whole 8 people here now. I've got a video we're going to watch. This is from one of the Streamline Publishing, you know, kind of interviews that they do. And the artist's name is Carl Gretzky. Gretzky is an American artist. You know, anyway, you'll get his whole background. Eric Rhodes will tell you all about it. But he's been doing plein air painting for a while now. And he's fairly well known for his landscapes. But in particular, he's known for like his sunrises and sunsets, right? And the reason that I picked this video is that just recently, as of last week, what was it, Friday? Yeah. You know, Friday morning I went out and, you know, spent a little time outside watching the sunrise. It was absolutely gorgeous. One of those days where there was lots and lots of color in the sky. And then before class, I took about 45 minutes and threw some paint down on a little, you know, 5x7, you know, panel to try to represent, you know, what I could remember about what I saw that morning, as far as color and shape and things like that. And so, you know, that was a sunrise. And for those of you who haven't seen it, I think most of you have, but I'll show it to you anyway. Now, from Friday, I went back in on Friday evening and put a little more paint on this, and you know, got a little darker color in the sky. The color that I had there before was lighter overall, and so I darkened it down toward the top of the sky.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, which gave me, you know, a little more contrast. You know, a little
That's really
more
nice.
what it really kind of was like. And I also put a little more foliage in there than I had originally, because there was still quite a few leaves on the tree at that time, even though they were all turning brown and, you know, gold and stuff like that. This weekend in the wind kept care of that. Now they're just about totally bare. It looks very wintry out there now. But anyway, this was my recollection, you know, my memory of that sunrise. And you know, I wasn't too far off, you know, from when I checked the photos, and I had shown you guys Friday the photo as well. you know, I mean, all the trees are not in the right places and stuff like that, but it's close. You know, it's a lot closer than I thought it actually might be. But you know, for a little 5x7 painting, you know, I'm pretty happy with that. You know, and like I said, it took me about 45 minutes to do, and then I went back and restated some of the color. That probably took me about another 45 minutes. So, you know, total, this is probably about an hour and a half time. You know, that's all. And you know, for an hour and a half, you know, I got quite a bit of stuff in there, and I feel like it's, you know, it's fairly true to what I remembered. Okay, so you know, that being said, so that was my painting. That kind of inspired me, you know, when I saw this interview with Gretzky. You know, he explains a lot about how, you know, he handles, you know, getting the effect of the light, you know, at a sunset or, you know, a sunrise. And so that's what we're going to watch. And it's not real long. It's probably about an hour. You know, not much more than that. Okay?
What's his name?
Carl Gretzky. Yeah, you'll see it in a minute. It'll be over on the page. And again, this is through Streamline Publishing on YouTube. They have all kinds of, you know, really beneficial artist interviews and demos and stuff like that that you can watch. Usually not the whole thing. It's kind of a teaser because what they're trying to do is they're trying to get you to buy a video or take a class or something like that. But you can still get quite a bit of information, you know, by watching some of these things. So I'm going to share it. Everybody got a cup of coffee? Everybody going to be awake?
Mm-hmm.
Armando.
Yes, I'm awake.
Okay. All right. So here we go. And everybody see two silly looking guys?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, good. We're all on the same page. All right. And okay, so we're going to make it a full screen. And,
Eric Road.
Eric Rhodes. Yeah, he's the guy. He's a pretty amazing story all in himself. But yeah, anyway, let's see if I can back that up just a little bit. All right, off we go.
Fun air painting done in 3 hours during the middle of the day, but at sunset you've got about 30 minutes to do it. And so I struggled like everybody, I think, and now I've come across a sequence that I can use to try to make that easier. So I'm going to share that with you today.
Outstanding. Okay, well, we'll get started in just a second. Let's get this show going.
It's Art School Live with Eric Rose. Now, here's your host, Eric Rose.
Welcome to Art School Live. I'm Eric Rhodes, publisher of Fine Art Connoisseur and Plein Air Magazine. Our guest today is Carl Gretzky, who is known for his evening, nocturne, sunset paintings. And man, this guy is a rock star. Former physician turned painter. And you can just tell he just knows how to nail it. You're going to learn more about that in a second, including solving the problem of painting sunsets, which we all have. I'm anxious to hear this, actually. We have a big prize package for you today. It's my Paint by Note package. It includes my value specs, my practice pack, my easel brush clip, both of my palettes, the grayscale palette for learning grayscales and the color palette, and my video, the easiest way in the world to learn paintings. And you can win this. It's a pretty, it's like a $200, $300 prize package. You can win it today by putting a comment in the comments section, telling us where you're from, and we will grab from the comments, give you an opportunity to win. We have a terrific book for you, a ebook, 240 plein air painting tips. What we did is we went to a lot of the people we worked with on our videos, and we said, give us some of your best painting tips And you can get this for free. Just go to pleinairlive.com/240. All right. The winner of the Plein Air Magazine subscription I announced the other day, Jim Hewlett of St. George, Utah. Enjoy that. All right, so now we're back, and I want to just remind you, you can subscribe on YouTube. Just go to streamline.art and follow me at Eric Rhodes on Instagram and Facebook. Now we're going to get back to our guest, Carl Gretzky. Hey.
Hello, everybody.
So I think this is a big problem. This idea of whenever I go out to paint sunsets, I run out of time, and I've even gotten to the point, excuse me, where I kind of try to pre-paint everything else in except for the colors, but that doesn't quite work for me. And so I'm trying to say, okay, well, I got to do my memory training. So would you walk us through the solution?
Kind of took part of my talk away. I do get there early, and I do pre-paint some things, but it's only because I've been studying sunset for the last year, and I kind of know what to anticipate. I know which things I can paint ahead of time. And then in the past, when it got late dusk, I would keep painting and then realize I'm not really seeing what I'm doing, and I kind of ruined the painting. So now the other way to extend that 30-minute time period is I always put a nocturne light on my easel when I paint outside doing these sunsets. So that gives me, another 20 minutes of being able to look at shapes and trying to refine those shapes. And also, my memory is going to be sharpest immediately after I've seen it, as opposed to bringing the painting back to the studio and then trying to remember. So,
I think that's a great idea. All right, well, tell me what to do next. Do you want to start out with your?
Yeah, so anyway, I was going to just say that painting sunset, it really helps to know something about prismatic light and color, particularly how it interacts with the atmosphere. And so I've just got a few slides. I've got a few slides that I'm going to go over first, just to talk about prismatic color. So you go ahead and show that first one. So white light, which is what comes from the sun, is actually composed of colored light. And we know that because when you pass white light through a prism, it separates it into its color components. And that's because all these colors have different wavelengths and they travel at different speeds through substances. And it's always in the same sequence, goes red to orange to yellow to green to violet. That's long wavelengths to short wavelengths. And that is then the prismatic sequence. And you're going to see this time and again when you paint outdoors once you're attuned to it. And you really see it at sunset. And I'm going to show you some examples of that. We'll go to the next slide. Actually, can you go one more slide, Eric? There we go. So this prismatic color in the sky is nothing new. The book that John F. Carlson wrote many years ago, which is a black and white book, he describes color zones in the sky, and each one he labels a certain color. And in the end, he says, this is really an inverted rainbow. So what I did is I painted that diagram that he had in his book, just to show you which colors he's describing. And in fact, it's the prismatic sequence, right? So red at the horizon, orange, yellow, green, green, blue, blue, violet. And so you're going to start seeing that in nature now, and particularly at sunset. It won't be that vivid. I mean, the colors aren't that vivid. Usually they're shades of gray that have just a hint of orange or a hint of yellow, but you'll start seeing it once you know it's there.
Now, I want to ask a question about this diagram that Carlson shows here.
Yeah.
It looks like he has allotted a certain kind of almost perspective amount to it, like the red is a tiny little bit, the orange is a little bigger.
I'm going to show you that when I do this little demo painting today. But as you go up from the horizon, the color bands get wider and they get lighter up until you get to the bluish green or the yellow green band. That's usually the brightest in the sky. And it's interesting that our eyes actually see that color better than other colors. And that's why they're starting to make emergency vehicles and fire trucks out of that kind of yellowy green color. Just in a second.
That's cool. So on the left, that bar on the left is really showing what the values are.
It shows the color and the value.
All
It
right.
doesn't show the exact amount of chrome, often less than that. And then if you go to the previous slide there, this is a little sequence that I painted just to show you that we don't see all of those colors all the time. In the afternoon, you may just see the blue-violet and the blue-green layers. And then at sunset, you're starting to see the longer wavelengths near the horizon. So you're starting to see some orange and yellow at the horizon, and then transitioning to that yellow-green and then green-blue. And the maximum amount of color in the sky is usually early dusk, once the sun has set below the horizon. And now all these colors expand up above the horizon. You're starting to see more reds, orange, yellows. And depending on how you crop your painting, you may have a sky that's just orange and yellow. But if you had a big expansive painting, you'd see all these colors.
Fascinating.
And then finally, as the sun continues to set, everything gets darker and those colors start compressing again. Okay. All right. Now,
Next slide.
Next slide. That's the painting. I did this at a park right by our apartment last summer with two friends, Bob Upton and Jack Dan. We painted sunset, and we had about a half hour to do this, but we got there roughly a half hour ahead of time. And so what I thought I would do is I'd go through the sequence that I used to accomplish that painting to show you that it is possible. Yeah, let's start there.
Okay, so you're going to set up your easel and get going?
Sure. Okay.
All right, so I'll tell you what, I'm going to make a couple of announcements while you're getting ready, and we'll be right back to you. Our guest today is Carl Gretzky, and this is exciting because this solves a giant problem that we all have, and that is how to do sunsets and how to do it properly. So I'm excited about this. As if you're just tuning in, Carl Gretzky is a rock star painter and incredibly talented. And of course, he's a former MD, and he has really applied his science to understanding painting, which is really exciting. I want to remind you guys that we have a free ebook for you, 240 plein air painting tips at pleinairlive.com/240. Carl Gretzky has a number of videos out, or well, he has actually one video out with us. I should have said more than just the one, but it's called Carl Gretzky Nocturnes and How to Paint the Night. And it is so good because he has applied the science to the same concept. And now I used to get the glow wrong when I was putting lights and glow around the lights and so on. And he explained the science behind it. And I applied that, and it just made a huge, huge difference. So you can get that at streamline.art. And that's Carl Gretzky Nocturnes. Carl, I don't know if he's participating this year or not. I'll ask him in a second. It possibly is going to be part of the plein air convention in Santa Fe, the 17th through 20th of May. Santa Fe is an incredible place to paint. We're going to go to Ghost Ranch, where Georgia O'Keeffe painted and lived, and also a number of other locations. And we think it's going to be the biggest ever because everybody's like ready to get out and get painting again. So there's that. We also have a newsletter called Plein Air Today, and you can get it just by going to outdoorpainter.com and hitting the subscribe button. Plein Air Today, and big news on that coming around the corner, and you're going to want to make sure that you're part of that, because after the 1st of January, we're going to have it out every day. So you want to make sure you're getting that because we have lots of great plein air stuff. I'll also want to mention to you, we have a big event which also includes plein air painting, but others. We have Watercolor Live coming up the 27th through 29th of January. It's an online virtual conference. This is a conference, it is the largest art conference in the world. The attendance is going to be thousands of people, and it already has been that before, but it's going to get even bigger. And these are the top watercolor artists in the world. And of course, we change them out every year. Once in a while, we repeat one or two people, but headlined by the great Alvaro Castanet, and then everybody else on there is just rock star status. And of course, there's some who are from other countries, and so you don't want to miss that. Remind you guys that you can subscribe to this at Streamline on YouTube at Streamline Art, and follow on Instagram at Eric Rhodes. Okay, now we're going to go back to Carl Gretzky. Looks like he's all ready and set up. Carl,
Hi.
take it away.
Yeah, the good news is you don't have to look at my face much more. I'm going to be pointing the camera at my palette and then finally at my canvas.
Tell us a little bit about your palette, because
Yeah.
I'll always get that question.
Well, I initially trained under Bill Cat. He uses the Prismatic palette, which comes down through a lineage somewhere. Frank Vincent Dumont was in there. But in any event, I lay out quite a few colors, but they're in a prismatic sequence in the warms. They go from yellow to orange to scarlet to red to alizarin. And then another prismatic sequence in the blues going from manganese blue extra to cobalt to ultramarine, and then I have black. Then I mix a violet out of ultramarine and alizarin. And then I have a few extra colors that I throw on my palette that I find useful. King's blue, Portland gray, medium, and then I mix a green, and I use a little phthalo green and a warm earth color. All right, that's it. All right, I'm going to move you over here. You tell me if I get lined up okay.
You're looking good.
Okay. Would you like that enlarged?
Oh, I think it's pretty good.
Okay. All right, one last check. Is that good?
Yep.
Okay. All right, so I told you that I get to my site a little bit early, and I've learned through experience and now through study that by the time the sun goes down, any ground plane structures, you're really looking at a silhouette. So I've learned to go ahead and paint my scene initially as a silhouette ahead of sunset. So I'm gonna go do that now. And this was shoreline, there's a pond in front, a bunch of trees, church. If you kind of remember that initial image I had you show, that's the scene.
I just pulled it up.
Okay. And this isn't going to be the most beautiful painting, but it'll tell you what my process was. There's a dominant tree over here, and the day before I came to paint this, I went down to check out the spot, and this ended up being where the sun went down. It's right behind this tree. And so I'm going to go ahead and, as I'm doing this silhouette, I'm going to put some red into this part of the landscape. And I'm going to show you why in a second. And then as I move away from that, I'll go back to that other dark color I had, which is just a mixture of multiple darks, really. I had some blues, some greens, but it ended up looking like a kind of a murky brown color, I guess. And the nice thing about doing it this way is I have all day to do good silhouette.
We're going to be here all day. That's good.
Good. Yeah. It was at, sorry about that, at Door County last year, and they had a sunset paint out that started at 7, but sunset wasn't until 9, so I went out and did my silhouette. And then I waited 2 hours eating ice cream on the park bench until sunset.
I didn't think you would eat such
Yeah. Okay, so the silhouette was something like that. There's going to be sun coming through around the base of that tree. And now I'm going to just take you to the side here and show you why I paint that. This is a little more science. I promise it won't take long.
Take as much time as you need, Carl.
Okay. So I've got
I'm getting
to take,
seasick.
sorry about that. All right, I've got a tank of water. I've got a flashlight shining through it. Gosh, that's going to work. I think it's different than when I look with my own camera, but you can see there's some brightness in the tank, and I'm going to pull this black sheet up in front of it, you're going to see a glow on the sheet. You see it?
Yep.
There it is. And what that is it's light scattering in the lens of the camera. But it'll also scatter in the lens of your eye. And that's why that tree looks so red next to the bright sunset. So that's why we paint it that way. All right.
Looks like a nice studio, Carl.
Thank you. Thank you. Right back where it was. Okay. Okay. So I'm still painting the silhouette. I'm going to put a reflection on the water. And reflections on water are typically, they reflect darks lighter and they reflect lights darker. So I'm going to put a little bit of a lighter tone in for this reflection. And the other thing is that reflections typically are more vertically oriented. There's some vertical strokes into this reflection. Okay. So there's my initial design. And I can just sit on that until I get closer to sunset. The next step, as the sun gets closer to where I want it, which is right here, is I'm going to try to capture a cloud formation that I like. And it helps if the cloud formation is similar to what's there. So I don't try to make up too much, but I can certainly change the position a little bit to try to make a good composition. And I'm just going to copy the cloud formation that was there for the painting that you showed earlier.
I'll just show it real quick.
Okay. And you'll notice that I'm doing the outer edge of the shape in a light color. And that's because, as opposed to just putting a blob of gray paint down to that cloud, which is in shadow, if I did that, I used to pick up some of that gray when I did the clean colors around it, and it would make it muddy. So now I just draw the outline of the cloud shape, and then I'll work into that later. Once you get a cloud shape, just try to stick with it. If you keep chasing clouds, which is easy to do, it's really common to end up with gray in your sky. Let me put a few clouds up here, one there. So that's a basic cloud shape that I'm going to use. All right. So now I'm waiting for sunset, and the sun is right behind this tree. I want to catch it when it's just at the horizon, but when it's behind the tree, this background sky color is going to be similar enough that I can go ahead and paint it next. So I'm going to go ahead and paint the background sky color.
I think what I'd like to do, Carl, just as a reminder, I want to bring this up again, this showing the map of the colors in case people tuned in late. So we start out with the reds, and then the oranges, and the yellow-oranges, yellow-greenish, and so on. And so that'll be a reminder as we watch what happens here.
So I'm going to go ahead and start with kind of an orangey red at the horizon. And I make it darker than I usually would, darker than I see it, because I want the sun to really pop off against that color. So here's a little orange. We can put it on it.
Something is darker, it's going to give you more contrast against lighter.
Exactly. I'm not going to use too much orange because there's a lot more yellow in the sky in my source image, but I am using quite a bit. And you may lose your silhouette shapes as you do this. You can easily get those back. And in fact, you can get them back after the fact if you need to. Okay, so there's the orange with the roof right here that I'll put in later. So the next color going up in the prism is,
Are you asking me a question?
I guess I'm asking, it's yellow. So we're going to go ahead and put in a yellow that I let it kind of blend with the orange just a little bit. And again, you can see that it's kind of a dark, murky yellow.
Doesn't have to be, but that's
Doesn't have to be. It depends how much haze and things there is in the sky. And now I'm going to go to a brighter yellow. I'll mix a little yellow and white into that mixture. Here we go. You can see this whole layer now will get a little bit thicker than that orange layer at the bottom. And as I go up now, I'm going to go to add yellow light, which is a little brighter yellow. It tends a little bit more towards the green. And I'll make it brighter yet. Change that color just a little. And so the next color going up there.
Greenish blue.
Oh, it's still a greenish yellow.
Oh, yellowish green. Okay.
We'll go ahead and put that in. Now notice that's too dark. This should be about my brightest colors. I'm going to go back and add a little more yellow.
I was going to say, if you add white, it's going to chalk it out. The yellow will chalk it out.
These aren't the most delicate brush strokes, but I'm kind of painting around my camera a little bit. And after yellow-green goes...
You're asking me too many questions. It's greenish blue.
I'm kind of talking to myself a little bit as well. But I'm going to add a little manganese, this mixture, and put a little blue at the top there.
You know, I don't know if you know this about manganese blue, but they're going to stop manufacturing it entirely.
Right. This is actually manganese blue extra.
Yeah.
That's the one they're going to keep using, I believe.
Yeah, they have knockoffs, but the actual manganese, it's getting hard to get.
Yeah. I actually like the manganese blue extra almost better. It's much creamier. Just going to put a little more of a blue up here. It's a little too dark. These are adjustments I continually make when I paint. I put it down and see what it looks like.
Good.
A little clunky, but I can actually go ahead and improve this a little bit by blending. This looks green. There we go. I want something that ends up being a grayish color with just a little bit of the hue in it. It's looking more like it. And I think just to give that yellow-green zone a boost, I'm going to use white and add yellow light and just paint right over that zone. So I'd say this should be the brightest spot in the painting. Put a little of this in. I shouldn't say in the painting, brightest spot in the background sky.
Yep.
Okay. We're going to go right there. Now, before the sun has not quite set, and before I put the sky reflection in the water, I'm going to do these clouds. And what I do for clouds is I mix a base color first. And typically it's kind of a violety gray color, maybe a little bit of blue in it. And I'm going to put that down as a base color, and it won't look correct right away, but after I get it down, then I'm going to put additional color into it to show you a prismatic shift in the cloud. Let's see if this looks too dark. I think that's too dark. I'm going to add a little tint to that. Maybe a little manganese. Still too dark.
Well, the cloud is kind of silhouetted too, isn't it?
Oh yeah, the cloud is in shadow. And it depends on how thick that cloud is as far as how dense it's going to be, how dark it's going to be. There we go. But typically people, I think, paint their clouds in shadow too dark. Even in shadow, they're somewhat luminous, so they end up being lighter than you think they are.
Very helpful. You're a great teacher, Carl.
Oh, thank you. Now, as I put this down, I'm going to lose two edges, which is typical of clouds. You get kind of lost and found edges in clouds.
But aren't you going over the yellow that you intended not to?
A little bit.
Not to pick up that color?
Yeah, I didn't.
Well, at least I'm paying attention.
Yeah, exactly. Now, as I get down to the bottom, I think what I'm going to do is start putting some warmth in that cloud. So I'm going to mix a little bit of red and white, put it right into that mixture. So it'll end up being lighter and warmer. Right? But still darker than the background sky.
You guys have questions, put them in the comments section. I'll try to read them.
Right. So they're very funky so far, but they'll get better at the end. And at this point, if I'm doing this from life, this sun is going to be now exactly where I want it. It's going to be right at the horizon behind this tree. So I'm just going to wipe out just a little spot for that. And I think I'm going to start by putting down pretty much the brightest color on my palette without adding white to it yet. And that'll be the cad yellow light. And that's where I'm going to have my sun. And just as there's a prismatic shift in the background sky, there's going to be a prismatic shift in the halo around the sun. It's going to go from yellow to orange to pink. And it's going to be brighter than the background sky. So I'm going to go with that yellow next, maybe with a little orange. And I'll put it kind of at the margins of that bright spot. And as I move away, I'll add almost straight cad orange. It'll end up being darker, of course, than that background sky, because that was orange mixed with mud. You can see that already that gives that kind of glow back there. At the end, I'll pull some tree trunks over this, and it'll make more sense. Add a little bit of yellow back into this spot right here. Okay, so at this point, everything is blocked in except the water. So I'm going to go ahead and try to match the sky there. I already told you that darks reflect lighter, so lights reflect darker. It compresses the value differences in the water. So I'm going to take orange color and mix it with a little bit of mud on my palette and put that down right here. Each little step you make takes it closer to looking correct.
Sure does.
And on the right side, you start picking up a little bit of that yellow green at the very bottom, which I put at the very top. When you're all done with this painting and you have your light on and you're looking at it, you might want to enhance some of these areas. That's fair game. I'm going to put this light right here. Starts about right here. And like I told you, things are like vertical strokes in the water, typically. And then I'll finally put a bit of the cloud reflection down here. The only thing I need to be aware of is that the cloud should be darker than the section of the water of the light sky around it. It's still lighter than this reflection. I'm going to take the cloud color that I had, throw it in there. And that kind of fits the bill, I think.
Question is, do you paint this technique in alla prima mixing with underlying color?
Let me think about that for a minute.
I don't think you're mixing with an underlying color.
Oh, no, I'm not. That color that I used initially for my ground plane, I will use that as a mud color to mix in with some of these, but otherwise, no, nothing. Everything is kind of mixed one at a time. I don't know.
Yeah,
I guess I don't
probably somebody who tuned in late. I encourage you if you tuned in late. This is one of the best ever. Watch from the beginning. So you're going to put a touch of that yellow reflection in there. I see.
Now, before the light effect goes away, I want to try to get more accurate color on those clouds. And often the brightest thing in the sky, besides the sun itself, is rim lighting on the thin edges of these clouds near the horizon. So I'm going to go ahead and mix a very bright color right now that's warm. I'll use white and a little bit of cad yellow light. And I'm going to just go ahead and put this in and show you how all of a sudden this is going to start to pop. Okay. Put a few more of those in. Now I'm kind of going by my original painting slightly. But it's not that you couldn't make this stuff up, you kind of could, but I really want to get the actual sunset that's on there each time. So I do look at my scene and try to get those colors in the right place.
I think my tendency would be to make it all much brighter and much more garish.
Yeah.
But yours works so beautifully.
Now, here's another, I've already shown you some prismatic color shifts, right? Orange to yellow to green to blue. This is going from a kind of a reddish to a dark red to a violet. Another one is in this rim lighting goes from a bright yellow down here, and as I go up, which is actually coming over my head forward, these are way in the back. As I come forward, it'll also shift dramatically from yellow to orange. So I put some orange in that mixture. See that? So something like that. All right. I'm going to get a little more color back into the cloud. Just like the rim lighting, the brightest color is going to be in this back cloud typically. We make that a little lighter. I've added some scarlet in here.
So now it feels like that it's reflecting that orange in the sky.
Yes. Some of it is reflecting off the clouds. Some of it is actually scattering through the clouds, but it gives you that prismatic shift still. I'll put a little of that up here also. That's a little too dark.
June Finnegan says, I'm going to watch this a few times from the beginning. I think, June, that's right. This is something you want to memorize.
Now, I'll tell you, Eric, at the convention in Santa Fe, we made a whole talk on painting sunset, and it's much more detailed about clouds and haze, and which direction you're painting, and ground plane colors. So this is a little miniature
Teaser.
lesson. Yeah. All right, so I'm going to work on the ground plane now. I think I have enough in the sky that any touch-ups I can do after the sunset. I want to get some accurate color now in here. So there's going to be a little bit of local color still coming through, and that local color was green. So I'm going to take kind of a muddy green and put it into some of these trees.
There's a question. Sue has a question. I understand the reflection of the sky and the water is closer, but did you say it was duller and less saturated in the reflection?
That's true. That's exactly what would happen. Unless it's actually a mirror, like ice just freezes. But anytime you have water, reflections on water, some of the light will be absorbed by the water. Nothing can be brighter than what is causing the reflection. So it's always going to be down from that reflection. Or down from the light to the sky. I'm also going to put a little bit more blue in things out here because there's some sky color coming through, illuminating some things in blue. Better fix that church up right away. That church was a limestone building, and that typically ends up looking kind of grayish brown at sunset. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in the tower.
There's a question that I think you answered already. Does he paint the clouds as a prismatic shift as well? And the answer is yes.
Yes, I just showed you some of that here.
Okay.
The roof of that church is reflective. So I'm going to put a little bit of blue on the roof of that church because it's reflecting the sky up above. And then the other thing that happens, it's good to catch some top planes on these trees because this color up here will be illuminating the tops of the tree. So I've actually mixed that color, made it a little darker than this. I'm going to go ahead and pop some of that in. This will help define what this mass is back here. You can vary that a little bit. I'll put a little warmth back into some of this.
Is that mixed with the manganese blue?
Yeah, there's a little of that in it. But I'm kind of, at this point, I've got so many piles on my palette that I'm just kind of using what I have, which is a mixture of everything. There might be a few warm highlights on the sun side of these trees. I'm just going to put some here. Okay.
So you're thinking logically, which I think is smart.
Yeah. I'm going to try to improve that tree in front of the sunset right now. I'm going to take a little bit of green, make it very warm with some orange, and try to do a top plane on that tree also.
What kind of brush are you using? There's a debate going on. Is it Princeton?
You know what? This one is an aspen.
Yeah, Princeton aspen.
Yeah. But honestly, I don't pay that much attention which brush it is, as long as it's usually a new brush.
It's the old thing. Everybody thinks better golf clubs making better golf.
Yeah. Great. Okay. So at this point, I'm going to put in a few more trunks on that tree. I'm going to mix up an alizarin green color. Kind of artist talk. And I'm just going to drag a little bit over here.
Make sure you tell us, everyone, where you're watching from. There's a prize worth over a couple $100 today for comments, if we pick your comment. People watching from all over the world.
Okay. All right, so now I'm going to try to make a few marks on the water that'll help that water lay flat. I'll show you what I mean by that. I'm going to mix this sky color, something up in here. I'll put it on a flat, narrow brush. It's going to drag it across the water because there's little ripples that end up crossing these shadows in the water. You see how that all of a sudden that makes that look like flat water.
I'm curious, would you explain why you did it at an angle instead of straight across?
You can do it either way. This might show perspective. This particular pond, there are little sprinkler heads through here to aerate the water, and it actually gives you that angular look. But what I'm going to do next is I'm going to put some glare at the shoreline in a darker blue, and that'll kind of flatten out or straighten out that picture in your head, I think.
I would encourage everybody to take this demo and try to do it on your own today, if you can, or tonight, because you want it to sink in.
Mm-hmm. So here's where that water kind of laps up on the shore, and like a curved mirror showing a little bit of the sky. Okay, like that. So I don't know how much more time there is left, Eric. I can do a couple more things that are kind of fun.
You got a little tiny bit of time, but not a whole lot.
Well, one thing I'm going to do is, this was a city park, and there's roads behind here. And every now and then I see a bright light shining through the trees, reflecting on the water, and I thought that was kind of a nice touch. So I'm going to go ahead and put a couple in. And if you ever seen my Nocturne talk, I do a little halo of color around the light source. So that orange I just placed is the halo. Now I'm going to put a little bright spot in the middle of that. Just take some yellow, a little bit of white. Put it right here. And then I'm going to go find a color in between those two to make a reflection on the water. Again, linear reflection, right? And let me put one more of those in. I'll put a cool one. Over here. Two.
Those look like they could be the windows in the church.
Maybe.
Oh, they look like headlights.
Yeah. Usually headlights. Okay. How am I doing? Anything? Oh, I'll show you another one. Those clouds, I like to make them look not like cardboard cutouts. So I try to give them a little form. I'm going to take some King's Blue, and I'm just going to round off the tops a little bit with this cooler color. That helps or not.
It helps.
Okay. Add just a little bit of alizarin back into, I'll pretend this is a separate cloud up here. Something like that.
Julia from Ireland says, "Don't stop, it's mesmerizing."
Thank you. So at this point, sunset would be over, but I still have my light on it. I'd be looking at these shapes, seeing if I can improve anything. The color is going to be pretty much gone, so I'm not going to do too much in the way of changing the actual color I have, but I might like smooth transitions a little bit or something like that. But I think this is where I'm going to stop, Eric, unless there's something more you wanted.
Okay, well, why don't you come back on camera and join us? This is absolutely fabulous. Everybody's loving this. While Carl's coming back on camera, I'll mention that he's got a great video that we produce, and it is called Nocturne, simply Nocturnes. And it explains the principles of light in more depth and how to paint nocturne evening paintings, painting the night, and it's available at streamline.art. We'll put a link in the comment section. Carl is also going to be at the plein air convention teaching. He's going to go into more depth on sunsets. That's going to be in May, and it's going to be a sellout. So get your tickets while you can, because everybody's telling me they're coming. We're already at 50% sold out, which is early, and there's a 100% back guarantee money back guarantee if you can't make it. All right, so we're going to get back to Carl here. Welcome to the studio.
Thank you.
There you are.
Can you see me okay, Eric?
I see you great, Carl. Thank you so much.
My front camera.
Yeah, well, lucky for us, we get to see you. Well, Carl, thank you for doing this. You are a fabulous teacher. I love the fact that you incorporate the science. And I'm just going to share one more time with everybody the prismatic approach here, because a lot of people missed it at the beginning. I would encourage you to go back. But this is explained a little bit more in depth, and you'll want to see those. And so, Carl, this was absolutely fabulous. Thank you for being on. We put your website in the comments section so anybody can get in touch and buy those paintings on that back wall.
Yeah, that's right. All right, thanks, Eric.
All right, Carl, maybe I'll see you in Florida again this year. I'll try to get down there.
All right, everybody. What do we think about that?
Really cool.
Mhm.
Really cool.
Good stuff.
Yeah, I thought it was a good explanation, of how color kind of sets up in the sky, particularly when you have like a low angle on the sun, like sunrise, sunset, and it really does follow a lot of the principles of light going through a prism. It's almost the same thing. So anyway. So I wanted to share that with you guys, and and that might be something that you might want to keep in mind, when you're out there, trying to paint, a landscape, with.
Yeah. Charles?
Yeah.
It's something that I want to tell you about sunrise. When you retire, that's going to change on you, because you are not going to get up early.
Oh,
Maybe, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. It's I usually see sunrises, on a
Yep.
pretty regular basis, because I tend to wake up at like 4:30 or 5 o'clock in the morning. Yeah,
That will change.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't.
it's your body, it's your biorhythms.
Yeah, it may not. Usually what I do is, when I get up in the morning early like that, it's always a great time of day for me because it's very quiet. You know, I mean, nobody's moving in the house and stuff, so I can just go work, for a couple hours, and there's no background noise, there's no distraction stuff, and so that's always a very productive time for me. Is when I get up in the morning. Of course, I'm one of those people when I do wake up, it's like I'm awake. I mean, it's like when my eyes open, I'm awake. I'm not one of these people who it takes 2 or 3 hours, to get going and actually wake up. So, but that's just me. Who knows, Armando?
Yeah, I only get up early Monday, Wednesday, and Friday because the class. The other day, I don't get out of my bed until 10 or 11.
Okay, all right, yeah. But do you stay up late at night?
Yeah, until 1 or 2 a.m.
Right. Okay.
Watching old movies.
Okay. Right. Well, you could actually spend some of that time painting.
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do in New Year's.
All right. Okay. You're gonna paint instead of watch old movies.
That's the New Year resolution, to paint a lot.
Okay.
And draw faces that it's hard for me to make faces.
Yeah. Well, it takes practice. It just, the more you practice it, the better you'll get. So.
Yes, that's what my priest told me, that the practice made the master.
There you go. Okay.
Charles, I have a question.
Uh-huh.
On that video that we just saw of Mr. Gretzky,
Mm-hmm.
Was he using a different paintbrush for each new color, or did he clean it off between?
Yeah, you put that in the comments. No, he wasn't. He was using, overall, I'd say he's like using maybe 3 or 4 brushes.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
He would just wipe it out,
Right.
and not even put it in turpentine, just wipe out the color. Because all he was doing with the brush was he was picking up color and applying it. And as soon as he was done applying it, he would just wipe it out and pick up the next step, which was generally a color that was very similar or just, slightly different. So even if there was a little bit of color left in the brush, it wasn't going to affect, the paint mixture very much.
He worked very quickly, and that's why I was asking.
Yeah. Well, a lot of what you were seeing, he didn't really take a lot of time to do a lot of finish blending, and he was working very small, so it was very alla prima like with his approach, which if you're going to do plein air or you're going to do any kind of life painting, that's one of those things that you sort of adapt to, is
Come out the kitchen.
Yeah, not really spending a lot of time futzing around trying to do a lot of finished surfaces, but really just getting the color and the value that you need down in the composition, and then moving on. And because
So was the type of paint that he used oil or acrylic?
it was oil. It was all oil paint.
Oil?
Yeah, it was very much of an oil painting approach, that he took, alla prima oil painting approach. And that's, when you're looking at a lot of those quick live paintings, things like that, a lot of them look exactly like that. You see just a lot of brush marks and things. And then when you step back a little bit, it all falls together and becomes a figure or a landscape or a portrait or whatever it is. But you can really see all of the direct, brushwork and stuff, in a lot of those paintings. Because, a lot of artists don't take the time to sit and, blend them out.
So there was some discussion too about the type of brush that he used. Did that make a difference?
Yeah, he used, mainly what he used was filberts and flats.
What?
Filberts.
Gilbert's, okay.
And flats, F-L-A-T-S. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
And those were the two shapes that I saw him use, primarily in that whole painting. I didn't really notice. Now, he didn't use like a lot of like detail brushes or riggers or things like that. They were all, I think the smallest brush he used was probably like a number 4, number 6, like a flat. And if he needed detail, he would just use a corner, to put in like a little spot of light or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he didn't use like a lot of like real fine detail brushes and stuff. Because if you're trying to capture something, like a sky or how the light is changing in the sky, and you're trying to do it from life, you don't have time for that. You're working with a limited amount of brushes, and you got to be very efficient to really try to capture that. And as I think he said this too, at some point during the painting, the light changes so quickly that before you know it, you're really painting from your memory, because within a 15, 20-minute period, that sky's totally changed. So you got to be quick.
Yeah.
Anybody else got anything? Any questions? No?
I just want to say that I guess just what you said a few minutes ago about the painting from memory. That Stephen Wilshire, I sent my nephew one of his drawings. My nephew has brain cancer.
Yeah.
And I just wanted him to see how phenomenal the brain really is. Mm-hmm. So I sent him one of the drawings. I ordered a drawing for him, and he lives in Chicago. And I ordered him the drawing from he did of the Chicago River, and my nephew lives right there on the river. So with him recovering, trying to manage his situation and seeing how this young man overcame a lot of his things. It wasn't illness, but it was different. But I told him to watch the videos, and I told him that my instructor had showed us the video of Stephen Wilshire in London, and I wanted to share that with him because I thought it would be very beneficial and inspirational to him. So he and his wife did. When they got the painting, they thought how the drawing, they thought how magnificent it was. And then to read about him gave the drawing even more value. So I'll send you a little copy of the photo that he sent me that he took of his wife when she received the artwork. And while we were talking, I said, when I mentioned your name, I said, oh, I'm supposed to be in class right now, so I have to hang up and go to class because I was talking. And this morning, he called me last night. I wasn't able to speak to him, so I called him back this morning. I said, oh, I got to go to class. Now I'm mentioning my art instructor. I'm supposed to be there right now. So I just wanted to know that what you did to inspire us, I used that to inspire someone else. And now that painting has that artwork has a lot more meaning to him. Mm-hmm. And so I was pleased that they got it from London to Chicago in no time flat. Yeah. You know, and it was framed and everything. So it was wonderful.
Right.
Okay. Well, for those of you who don't remember who Stephen Wilshire is, he was a British artist. He's considered a savant. He has some mental challenges, but he's overcome those, by his, use in drawing, and the fact that, he has this sort of like photographic memory. He can look at a scene for, 10, 15, 20 minutes and it records it, you know, really, really accurately. And that's a highly unusual, you know, thing to have happen in the human brain, but you know, it's one of the gifts that he has, and you know, he's, you know, made, you know, a really good art career out of it, and you know, he's really pretty young, and he'll be around hopefully for a long time, and still doing artwork. So I'm glad you enjoyed it, Claudia. And
Yeah, I really did, and I enjoyed his website. I sent a same thing to my my son in New York, of the New York skyline, and they said they're gonna hold it as it gets closer to Christmas. They didn't want to open it yet, but my thing is to always go and check out the artist, and I think that gives more value and more sentiment to the artwork itself, more appreciation for the artwork. So I'm probably gonna buy one for myself too, probably.
Okay. Well, hey, you know, it's I would encourage anyone, you know, in this group, they should know, if you know, if you really think about it, you know, buying actual original art and trying to buy it, if possible, directly from the artist is probably one of the best investments you can make. When I say investments, I don't mean that it's going to necessarily become wildly valuable or something in monetary aspects, but the fact that, you know, you had some kind of interaction with the artist, you know something about them, you know, and you're supporting the fact that they're creating artwork, and the benefit for you is you get artwork that nobody else has, and you get to live with it, you know, year in, year out. And it has, you know, kind of special meaning to people, you know, when they collect art pieces. You know, I've had people over the years, particularly, it seems like since I worked, you know, at the Benson Center, it was kind of funny. I probably had at least 15 or 20 different people contact me who were people who collected my artwork when I was 19 and 20 years old, you know.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and working, you know, I was kind of at the gallery in Cannery Row, and you know, and they'll send me, you know, an email or something saying, hey, you know, are you so and so? My mom and dad, you know, went to Monterey. They were on their honeymoon, you know, 30 years ago, 4 years ago, and they bought this painting. Are you the guy who painted it? And you know, they'll send me, you know, a picture of the painting, and I'll look at it and go, oh, okay, yeah, I did. I painted that. You know? And it's amazing, you know, how people will kind of track you down, you know, and or come across you, you know, and then reach out to you and go, hey, we've got some of your artwork. You know, and if they didn't buy it directly, you know, then there's usually a story, you know, about, you know, their mom or their dad bought it or something, you know, when they were.
Back to what Claudia was saying, it's amazing that this class and this platform has exposed us to a lot of different genres of art that we may not have ever sought or looked for. And it's, as we discuss it with other people, I guess we just spread the news of the art.
Yeah. One of the things that, you know, I talked about really early on in this class, and this is getting on to almost 2 years ago, is a lot of people don't realize that right now, you know, at this very moment, there are artists working out there that are going to be as prominent and famous as people like Leonardo da Vinci or, you know, any of the old masters. You know, you give them 50 to 100 years, people are going to be looking back at this period of time, and, you know, they're going to be absolutely amazed at some of the artwork that's being made right now. You know, because with the technology we have and with the access to information that we have that a lot of people didn't have back during the time of the Renaissance and things like that. You know, you've got so many more people doing, you know, creating these beautiful pieces of art. And it's difficult right now to find them because you don't hear about them. And you probably won't hear about them for, you know, a good 30 or 40 years from now, because a lot of them will just begin to be discovered at that point. And that seems to be the way art history kind of goes. You know, while artists are alive, you know, they're just doing their work, you know, and, you know, 50 years later, you fall into one of two categories. You know, somebody either remembers your work and it's out there in institutions and it gets viewed, and or it gets forgotten. Yeah, and that's kind of how it goes. You know, we've historically got all kinds of examples of artists who were literally totally forgotten. You know, think about Cecilia Beau, John Singer Sargent, you know, Bouguereau, even for you know, a great amount. After a certain period of time, nobody looked at their artwork. You know, nobody, and they were kind of forgotten, you know, about who these people were. And then later on, they were sort of rediscovered. And you know, we're aware of them today. But if you would have gone back 30 years ago, it would have been very difficult to find any information on any of those artists that I just mentioned. You know, it's like they never existed. You know, but the artwork was still out there, and it took kind of a lot of digging, you know, of scholars and people who saw the artwork and were inspired by it and wanted to find out who these people were to kind of rewrite that story, you know, and get information on it before it was all totally lost. So that's how it goes. Anybody else got any comments about the video we watched today?
What I enjoyed most was the discussion on the prism, the color shifts.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I've known that forever, I think. However, I never applied it to, or thought about applying it to doing artwork. You know, it's one of those things that that brought that home really, really nicely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, if you're looking at any kind of life painting, you're talking about light. You know, that's what you're painting. You're painting the reaction of light on surfaces, you know, as a painter, whether you're doing a still life, a portrait, and or a landscape. And so all of those, you know, physical principles, you know, apply to how light reacts. So yeah.
No, I agree with Bob. That I found that very interesting. And you say it's something you know all your life basically, but you never think about it as applied
mm-hmm.
to the art, particularly this, you know, sky and reflection. That to me was the biggest thing I took away from this.
Okay. Well, and so hopefully some of that will begin to show up in your paintings more. I think that a little.
But I'm getting old, so my memory fades fast.
Join the club.
You're not alone. You're not alone.
Well, Bob, guess what? See,
what's that?
You can always save a link, you know, to that video. You just keep watching it until it kind of sinks up, and then you won't forget it. Yeah, I know how that works.
Well, I've written it down, so yes, I'm going to keep that one. That's a keeper.
Okay. Yeah, I would encourage all of you. You know, I'll try to pull some artwork, and maybe on Wednesday we'll take a look at it. I've got several artists coming up on Wednesday that we're going to kind of do a deep dive into and look at their artwork. And I've been kind of saving artist stuff the last couple of weeks. that I haven't gotten around to really sharing with you. But yeah, Wednesday we're probably going to be looking at a lot of, at least 6 different artists and their work. And so I would encourage you to, show up for that. You might see something you really like. Because
I sent you a painting I did this weekend of a sunrise. Now, after seeing this, I have to go back and reevaluate what I did.
Okay, good. Yeah. Go back and look at it and go, okay, so, now I've got this little bit of knowledge, and
Right.
How did I do with that? And then what would I do different?
But again, it's like you said earlier, too, the sunrises are different than the sunsets.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. If you think about how the spectrum changes.
Right.
Yeah, usually, and this is just a generalization. Okay? It's not a hard fast rule, but generally what you find is that the light usually runs in the morning from sunrise to about 10 o'clock. And the overall range of colors is from yellow to orange. Okay? And then after about 10 to 10:30, the temperature cools, and you go into the middle part of the day from really about 10 to 11 o'clock to about 2:30 or 3, and the temperature again, like I said, is very cool, and it towards blue, right? During the middle of the day, and that's when the light kind of gets flat. There's not a lot of long shadows, things like that. And then after really about 3 o'clock, then the light starts shifting back, and it goes basically, from orange or red orange to violet in the evening, and that's how in a lot of cases, when you look at paintings, and particularly those who are painted in like the extreme beginning or the end of the day, you can tell whether it's a morning painting or one that was painted in the evening because of those children. Because you'll see that shift, in color.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I did that watercolor with the sea, it had the tall building next to the house. John had sent me a thing of it.
Mm-hmm.
And as I was putting my watercolors on the watercolor paper, and it's a 400 pound, whatever that means, for the paper, the watercolor paper has got 400 pound thing written on there, letting you know how thick it is or whatever it is. Anyway, yeah, wait. So I'm using that, but as I'm spreading my watercolors onto the surface, I'm noticing that it's starting to like bead up or shred or something. And so I wait for it to dry, and then I brush those things off. What am I doing wrong? Is it the wrong paper, or am I not putting enough paint on the paper, or what's going on?
Well, more than likely. Well, let me ask you a couple of questions first.
Okay.
Are you working with the watercolor paper in a pad, or are you stretching it onto a board? So that it stays taut.
It's from a pad. I take it out of the pad and set it on the thing.
Are you beginning to see that the paper is maybe getting a little wavy or puffy on you? When you
a little, but not a lot, just a little bit.
Yeah. Well, because of the weight of it, it's not going to get as wavy on you as a lighter weight. Let's say that you like an 80 pound or 180, or 160 pound watercolor paper. Those are going to wrinkle on you more when they're wet, unless you stretch them. Okay? Because watercolor paper, it's not really meant to work on directly out of the pad like that. And particularly if you're going to work really wet into wet. Okay? If you're going to do a lot of dry brushing and just kind of a minimal amount of water, then you'll be fine. It will stay flat. But when you start getting that paper saturated, then you're going to get what they call, felling, which is where the paper begins to roll up and you get the little, scratch of paper. That means that you're getting your paper oversaturated.
Okay.
for too
Okay.
long. And as you're, you know, because you're keeping it so wet and you're working with the brush, you're kind of scrubbing the surface and it's peeling off, you know, those upper layers of paper. So the answer.
That's what I was going to say, Wanda, too. It's just, I noticed that it happens to me a lot. If you get it too wet, and it'll start doing that.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
So how do you go about stretching the paper first?
Yeah.
Well, what you basically do is you take your paper, you have a drawing board or something, you'll take it out of the pad and you'll take, you know, like some wide tape. Usually like painter's tape, the blue painter's tape works okay. We used to use that gum packaging tape that you wet, you know, with a sponge and then you know, lay down. And, you know, it's sort of like, you know, packaging that you would send through the mail. We used to use that a lot, you know, to actually take the paper down to the board. And once you take the paper down to the board, you know, you wet it, you know, and get it really wet and saturated. And then you just let it sit and give it about, you know, 20 minutes. And the paper will begin to stretch, you know, very evenly. And you won't get that buckling and wrinkling. The other thing is because you've taken the time to wet it evenly, that when you start working into it with color, you still have to be very careful not to scrub it a lot, because when you start scrubbing the surfaces, really good quality watercolor paper generally doesn't tell a lot. But, you know, the student grades, you know, things that are not as high quality, those you'll get a lot of that, you know, telling. So the quality of the paper has a lot to do with it as well. But it's basically telling you that you're working too wet and that you're scrubbing on the surface too much. Okay.
And what's the best weight of the paper to have?
Well, the 300 pound, you know, which is I think what you got. I've never heard of one. I'm not saying it doesn't exist. It could. But generally about 300 pounds is probably, you know, a good weight to work with, because it is very thick and very stable. But a lot of people will work, you know, with like about a 140 or 160 pound watercolor paper just fine. And if you stretch it, it'll stay flat. You know, you don't really have to have the 300 if you go, you know.
Another thing I've noticed, if you use just a straight watercolor paper versus a mixed media, there seems to be less of that on the mixed media because it's a smoother, harder surface, not as porous.
Right. Well, the surface on a mixed media paper is what we would call more closed. A lot of times mixed media paper will have a sizing on it, just like a canvas would. And so it helps protect the surface, you know, so you don't get, you know, a lot of that paper, you know, running up and colored. And I like mixed media paper. The other thing I was going to suggest, and I've mentioned this before, that it's getting very difficult to find out there, is generally when I do watercolor, my go-to with any kind of water media is what I call double weight, you know, watercolor board by Strathmore. And, you know, it's a good product. It takes lots of abuse. You really have to work really, really hard, you know, to get it to tell on you. And the nice thing is, because it's a double weight board, illustration board, you don't ever have to worry about stretching it. You can work directly on the board. Yeah.
And what kind of tape do you use to hold the paper down?
Well, that's the thing. If you use that double weight, you know, watercolor board, you don't have to stretch it.
You don't have to stretch it?
No, you can.
Oh.
You can work directly on it, and yeah, you'll never have to stretch it. It's rigid enough that it's not going to expand and contract like a regular piece of watercolor paper.
But that water paper board, you would be using that to put inside your frame that you're going to put your picture in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It doesn't separate.
No.
Okay.
No.
So for those of us who are going to use regular paper or oil water paper, watercolor paper, what do we tape it down with?
Oh, like I said, you could use like a painter's tape.
Okay.
Like that blue painter's tape right now. Yeah, pretty good product that you can use. It's very difficult to find that gummed tape anymore that you use with the sponge and water, and you wet it and then you put it down. Let it dry. Occasionally you'll see it, in an art store, or you might find it at like a Dollar Tree or something, but it's generally small rolls of it, and it tends to be kind of expensive. But that's really the best stuff that I've ever found to work with. And I think I'm going to have to start looking around because I'm just about out of it. But when I think the last time I bought my roll of tape like that, it was probably about 10 years ago, and it was a roll about that big.
Really big.
And there was about that much paper tape on it, and so it's lasted me for a good long time. Whether I can find it out there in the market anymore, I don't know. I haven't looked for it in a long time. But
the other thing that you turned me on to, Charles, was the bound pad that is bound on all four sides.
Oh yeah.
I don't know what you call it, but that's great.
Yeah, you can buy watercolor in what they call a watercolor block. Okay.
Block. That's
It's a watercolor block, and so it's already pre-stretched. It comes.
Wait, are you saying BLOB blob? What are you saying?
Block. BLOCKED.
Oh, okay. Block. Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. And so what it is, it's watercolor paper of whatever weight that you're buying, but it comes, and you'll notice that the edges have like this gum edge on it, where the paper, the whole pad is all stuck to each other just along the edge. And so you can work directly on that watercolor block. It's already pre-stretched, so you don't have to worry about it.
Oh.
And generally, they're only going to do that with generally better quality watercolor paper. So, if you see that, more than likely you're getting some pretty decent watercolor paper. They don't do it with a lot of the student grade paper.
Charles, do you have a favorite watercolor paint that you might recommend?
Generally, I use Winsor Newton.
Windsor?
Yeah, Winsor Newton. They're probably, in watercolors, they're probably about the best quality watercolor you can buy out there. They've been at it for a really long time. But there's a lot of watercolors and things coming out of Asia now that are really pretty good quality as well. I don't know them because I haven't used them.
I use one that I'm not really sure what the correct spelling is. It's like Anteca, something like that. Are you familiar with that? Antigua or Antreca? Anyway, it's I can't.
You mean Utrecht?
No, it's an A. Starts with an A.
Oh, okay.
I should go get it too. Let me go get it too and tell you that's pretty decent.
Charles, is there a difference in the brushes that you use between oil paint brushes and watercolor brushes?
Totally different.
Oh, okay.
So,
I'm learning.
no, there are brushes made for water media and watercolor. And then there are brushes made for oil, and they're totally different. Watercolor brushes tend to be very soft. You don't use a bristled brush with watercolor. If the brush is real stiff, You don't want to use that for watercolor.
Right.
Use something very soft. Now they make a lot of synthetic haired watercolor brushes now, and they're pretty decent. But for the most part, a lot of it is natural hair brushes for watercolor. Okay, John, you got your.
Yeah, it's Arteza, A-R-T-E-Z-A, Arteza.
Okay.
A-R-T-E-A. Okay, thank you.
And they do paper and a lot of other supplies. It's fairly decent. It's sort of a middle grade.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not familiar with them, but yeah. I mean, they've got so many different brands out there now.
And that's when I bought the acrylic paint. That was the first set I bought.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah. The tubes are small, but other than that, it's okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I've got a lot of, just recently, when I say recently, the last couple of years, I've come across, different paint sets that I bought, for gifts for people and things like that, but I've also bought and kept one or two of them myself. And they have like gouache and watercolor, and they're different brands than I'm normally familiar with. And for the most part, most of that stuff seems to be, fairly good quality and pretty decent. So, you don't necessarily have to go out and spend a huge amount of money to get some decent paint. And, when you're talking about watercolor, those tubes are never very big. They're always pretty small. And, but a little bit of paint will go a long way. And the fact is, if you're doing watercolor, you can lay out your palette, and once you put color in that tray, you'll be using it for years before you run out. Because literally watercolor goes a really long way. It's not like oil paint. You're not building it up real thick, and you're not using it like real thick and opaque for the most part. Occasionally you might, but for the most part you're using it very thin and transparent. So it does go a long way. And the same thing is kind of true with acrylic paint. You can use acrylic very much so the same way, with kind of the same approach that you do with watercolors. You can use it very thin and very washy. The advantage to using acrylic over watercolor is the fact that once it dries, it's not going to move on you. So it's really easy to build up layers and do, like series of washes and things and build up your color, and never really build it up and have it like real thick like oil paint or very opaque. You can keep it, real translucent or transparent. So if you're using a technique kind of like an artist, say like there was an illustrator by the name of Bart Forbes who used gouache or acrylic, and they used it in very thin layers and built up color and stuff over a pencil drawing, so that the pencil drawing always showed through. You can work really effectively that way. So there's lots of different approaches to it. Anyway, anybody else got anything they want to talk about before we go away?
So it's what you're telling me is that the 300 weight of a watercolor paper is the best.
Well,
or can it be 400?
Well, about 300 is the highest. That's probably the thickness of watercolor paper. Okay. Now there's a difference between watercolor paper, and then you go up from there. You could go to an illustration board or watercolor board. What they call a Bristol board. And those are all slightly heavier and thicker weight papers and things that you don't have to necessarily stretch. But if you're using watercolor paper and it's not in a block, then more than likely you're going to have to tape it down and stretch it, you know, before you can work it. Because watercolor paper isn't really meant to be worked on, you know, in a pad. You know, they're just putting it in the pad for convenience. You take it out of the pad, you put it on a board, you stretch it, and that way, after you're done, the piece stays on the board until it totally dries. And when it dries, if it's stretched, it should be nice and flat and smooth. It shouldn't be wavy and buckly and, you know, all twisted and stuff. And yeah, which happens a lot, you know, with people when they, you know, when they're trying to use water media, because they get the paper too wet, you know, for that paper, and it starts, you know, doing wild and crazy things on it.
Well, I think I'm going to use the painter's tape like you suggested, because sometimes when I'm trying to use regular tape, it seems to tear.
Yeah.
So I'm going to use
well, like regular masking tape. Masking tape won't work.
No, scotch tape or
that
what's the
one,
other the packaging tape. You know, it's just. But I'm gonna go with the painter's tape. That seems to be much better.
Well, what you're looking for is you're looking for a tape that it has an aggressive enough, what they call tack to it, that it will tape the paper, you know, it will bind onto the paper, but not so much that when you pull it off, that it's going to tear the paper too.
Right, yeah.
And there's kind of an art to taking the tape off. You know, you can't.
And what is that? And what is that, Charles?
You gotta start
experience.
Yeah, experience, right?
Yeah, you gotta kind of start it at one of the ends of the tape, and when you pull it, you pull up. You pull, well, when I say up, you know, you pull the tape, but it's at a very low angle, so that you know that little edge is just lifting at a time. You know, and you do it very carefully and very slowly, and you shouldn't rip the paper at that point.
Okay.
You got to be very patient with it. You know?
Yes. Which I'll have to be.
Yeah, like a lot of things in art, you know, you can't be heavy-handed at it. You know, you got to be a little bit delicate with it. Okay.
Okay. And I also wanted to say how nice your Christmas tree looks, Claudia. And John, I love your snowman.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Snowman was this weekend.
Yeah, it's nice.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, Claudia was all.
Did you draw that? Did you draw that, John? Is that your painting back there?
Mine? Yeah, snowman, yeah.
It's your painting.
Yeah, this weekend. Yeah, it'll be an art share tomorrow.
Very festive, very festive.
Is it on the wall or is it on paper or what is it on?
It's pardon?
What is it painted on?
It's watercolor on watercolor paper.
Watercolor paper. Okay. Wow. Yeah. It reminds me of school when I was in elementary.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. That was done on a block, like we said. It's
very nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So are you? You know, now, I think you said that you got a block that was like what, 16 by 20?
Yes, right.
Okay. Yeah. And is that working out real well for you? You like that now?
Yeah, I like it. I think I'm gonna look. I'm trying to find one a little bit smaller. I'd like to do smaller ones too. So I haven't found a little smaller size, but just, as you say, the bigger you get, the more paint it takes.
Right. Yeah. Well, now, well, we have time. We can talk about this. One of the things when you're doing watercolor, okay, and a big mistake that a lot of people make is that when they have a piece of watercolor paper, they paint all the way out to the edge of the paper. Okay, you don't do that. Okay, if you have a piece of watercolor paper, you at least leave about a 2-inch border all the way around. Okay, you come in about 2 inches, and that's your image area. And the reason that you want to do that is because with any kind of water media on paper like that, you're going to want to frame it and you're going to want to put it under glass, right? And if you're going to put it under glass, then you're going to have to put a mat on it as well. And the mat is going to cover up that 1-inch area or whatever.
Right.
And your image is going to just bleed up under the edge of that just a little bit so that you don't get this outline. Now, some people will actually do a tight tape line so that their image, actually sits within a standard mat area and it doesn't go up under it as kind of a decorative part of the artwork. But generally, most people paint just a little bit bigger than the mat opening so that it goes right under just the edge of the mat. But you want that, 2-inch or more area of just plain white paper around it, so that you can put it in a frame, with a mat around it. And you're not trying to tape the piece in like right to the edge of the mat, which never works really well. Because over time, even if it's under glass, if it doesn't go up under the mat, what you're going to find is that it's going to shift in the frame a little bit. You're going to begin to see, a little gap, either top, the bottom, or the sides, where it doesn't really fit into the mat just fine. So just keep that in mind, you're doing watercolors. It's kind of important to keep a little bit of that paper extra, so it goes up under the mat. Okay.
Okay, good advice. Thank you.
It also helps when you are putting your name on the work, so that you don't put it at the very edge and that it gets covered up by the matting.
Right.
So you need to have a little, like you said, a border around the painting so that your name will show when it gets reframed.
Yeah. And generally referred to as what they call a bleed area. It's a printing term, but it applies to drawings and paintings as well. Anything that you're going to put it in a mat, to present it, you're going to want to leave what they call a bleed area, which is just really a blank or an open area, or maybe a little bit of color, goes out, and kind of floats out in that area, so that when you put a mat on it, you've got a nice clean edge on it.
So you're saying the word BLEED, bleeder?
Bleed. No.
Like
no,
blood?
Yeah, but it's bleed. No on it. Just bleed. Bleed area.
Okay, thank you. Lot to learn.
Oh, my battery is low on my computer. I got to get going before it goes completely out.
Okay.
I'll see you all tomorrow, okay?
So
All right,
Bye.
bye.
20, okay? A Zoom party, okay? At Armando's request. All right, so we'll see you tomorrow at 2. And I'll be at Benson.
I'll be there tomorrow.
Okay.
Oh, we can't wait, Armando.
Okay, cook something and deliver it to everybody.
See you all. Bye-bye.
All right.
Bye.